Acts 2 verse 14, and verses 22 to 33. It was impossible for Jesus to be held by death. Then Peter stood up with the 11, raised his voice, and proclaimed, "You who are Jews, indeed all of you staying in Jerusalem, let this be known to you, and listen to my words. You who are Israelites, hear these words. Jesus the Nazarene was a man commended to you by God with mighty deeds, wonders, and signs, which God worked through him in your midst, as you yourselves know. This man, delivered up by the set plan and foreknowledge of God, you killed, using law to crucify him. But God raised him up, releasing him from the throes of death, because it was impossible for him to be held by it. For David says of him, I saw the Lord ever before me, with him at my right hand I shall not be disturbed. Therefore my heart has been glad and my tongue has exulted, my flesh too will dwell in hope, because you will not abandon my soul to the netherworld, nor will you suffer your Holy One to see corruption. You have made known to me the paths of life, you will fill me with joy in your presence. My brothers, one can confidently say to you about the patriarch David that he died and was buried, and his tomb is in our midst to this day. But since he was a prophet and knew that God had sworn an oath to him that he would set one of his descendants upon his throne, he foresaw and spoke of the resurrection of the Christ, that neither was he abandoned to the netherworld nor did his flesh see corruption. God raised this Jesus, of this we are all witnesses. Exalted at the right hand of God, he received the promise of the Holy Spirit from the Father, and poured him forth, as you see and hear. Peter's primacy, or accepted leadership role, is indicated by his always being mentioned first in both partial and complete lists of the apostles. Again, we see the primacy of Peter in his constant role of spokesman for the other apostles. Peter is given a special pastoral role by Christ, being made chief shepherd of the flock. On the day of Pentecost, it is Peter who preaches. It is Peter whom God used to bring the Gentiles into the church, rather than the other apostles whom Paul went to see when he first visited Jerusalem. Peter quoted Psalm 16 verses 8 to 11, as an Old Testament text, that pointed to the resurrection of Jesus. David said, You will not abandon my soul to the netherworld, nor will you suffer your Holy One to see corruption. Since David had died and was buried, it is logical that David could not have been speaking about himself, but a descendant yet to come. Since Jesus is the only one who conquered death and is a descendant of David, he must be the promised Messiah of whom David spoke. Peter takes what is known and understood from the Old Testament to explain what is happening in the New Testament.